band Vienna Whyte here in Edmonton. This is a Yeg Music production. I'd like to introduce you to our co-host today, Marissa Kay. Thank you for being on the show today. We have two other guests as well who are lovely and beautiful and amazing for being here today. Let's get introducing to them. We have Jessica Soul from Caledon, Ontario, and Shelby Lowe from Nashville, Tennessee. So before we were kind of cut off, I wanted to hear more from Jessica. I wanted to hear about your musical journey and how you got into the music country scene.
Yeah, so just to summarize what I said before, I did just graduate from Humber College. I got my bachelor degree in music from them, and every year they do placement tests and they put each student into a different ensemble. And in first year, I was placed in country ensemble, so I was able to learn a lot about the country music process, and I got to really appreciate the musicality behind the genre. And I fell in love with the songwriting process and the storytelling, and that's kind of where I first fell in love with it. And then this past spring, I released a single to country radio, and it got a lot of great feedback. So I also just released another one this morning, and I have an EP that's out now, and that's kind of where I'm at. Cliff Note version.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. And Shelby, can you tell us more about your musical career and how you got into country music?
Sure thing. Well, I think it all started for me when I had a great uncle who was a guitar player. And the first thing he ever taught me on guitar was Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash.
Yes.
So from an early age, I heard a lot of Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and Hank Williams Sr. And I was exposed to it early on. And just living in a little farm town an hour south of Nashville, you hear a lot of country music, and I grew up on Tracy Lawrence and folks like that, and Eric Church, and I just grew to love it. I just thought it was cool, and I got dared to sing at a talent show when I was in high school, and I got up and I sang "Paint Me in Birmingham," Tracy Lawrence. Everybody went crazy and said, "Shelby, you're pretty damn good. You should pursue that." So I said, okay, I'll see what I can do. So I went to school for music business, wound up getting a publishing deal and writing songs for a living for a few years, touring the country and being broke down in different states and writing songs, playing in Nashville a lot. I've done it all.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love all your inspirations. They're super cool, and I love that that's kind of how you got into it, just by a dare. I feel like a lot of people, that's kind of their start to music, is just someone kind of pushing them in that direction. So that's really cool to hear your guys' journeys. So let's talk about our topic of the day, which is country music. Dun, dun, dun.
Surprise!
Surprise. So Marissa, can you start off our first question here?
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, for you guys specifically, because I know everyone kind of has a different idea of this. What are some common misconceptions that some people might have about country music?
Great question. I do get a lot of, I don't know if it's the same for down in Nashville, it probably isn't, but up here, people either love it or they hate it, and there's so many stereotypes that go around listening to country music, and I think that's a wild misconception because it's such like a broad genre that there's so many different subgenres in it, and that there's something for everyone.
What do you think, Shelby?
Yeah, no doubt. I think a misconception nowadays is that traditional country music is dead, and that there aren't any people really making it. It's not really what's on the radio anymore. But I think, traditional country music's stronger than ever. And I think there's still a lot of folks out there writing songs that aren't just about like pickup trucks and t-shirts. It's, there's some of that old school storytelling still out there. And there's people still using steel guitars and fiddles for country music. So it's out there, and it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too is it's really like unrealistic to expect a genre to stay the same. Like even rap music, for example, it started out in a certain category, and now they kind of have this like mumble rap, as they say, and people are like, oh, that's so different. But it's just a genre evolving. And I think for country, it's the same thing. You guys can't be stuck in the same bubble of like yodeling for the next 1,000 years. It has to kind of expand, right? So I love that you mentioned that. You both had some really great points. what are some differences? Now, you're both from different regions, obviously. So Jessica's from Canada and Shelby, you're from the States. So I kind of want to know what you guys think are the differences between Canadian country music and music that's from the States. What do you think is the differences, or the major differences you see, at least?
I've only really been in the scene for half a year now. In Canada, I haven't had the chance to experience the American country music scene yet. I'd love to get down to visit Nashville, but I don't know if I can really compare the two. I don't know, Shelby, if you have any.
Well, when I think of Canadian country music, the first person that comes to my mind is Culture Wall, is a guy that I've been listening to a lot lately, and he really reminds me of a lot of folks that I hear out of Texas. And he has this really cool storytelling style and a really weird kind of deep voice, and it's pretty badass. And I think a lot of people in America really, people I know really dig his stuff, because he has that just kind of cool weirdness about him, that little bit of Johnny Cash, a little bit of Western swing, and he's I think he's from Alberta. So I think he's from a very rural part of Canada, and
very small town, probably.
Yeah.
I
think he's a cattle rancher.
Yeah, a lot of our really popular, at least I think, like Alberta musicians or Canada musicians, are usually from very small towns. They don't come from like the big capital cities, I find. I don't know about you, Jessica. Like, I know even like Shawn Mendes, I don't think he was from Toronto. I think he was from like smaller area of Ontario.
I know Mississippi for sure. I know. I can maybe keep it for a little while. Don't quote me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I don't know either. So.
Yeah, well, awesome. And that's the thing about like country music from Canada versus the States. I find like there are a lot of similarities, at least from what I've heard. But I feel like for me personally, when I've listened to like American country music versus Canadian country music, there's like a very subtle difference, and I can't tell you what that subtle difference is, but like you can kind of just tell. I don't know what it is. It's like some kind of quality, but yeah, it's kind of cool to have like those very similar kind of, I guess, like areas in life where you can kind of draw from very similar things, and yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Marissa.
Oh yeah. So it wasn't until the 1950s that country music started to use the drums more commonly in country music, because before it was, very acoustic instruments, guitar, violin, mandolin, banjo. I guess that's more bluegrass. But how do you guys think your music would differ if drums weren't a thing in country music? Like, do you think you would approach the genre a little bit differently?
Shelby, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, listening to some of the older recordings of country music, they use a lot of, percussive acoustic playing and stand-up bass guitar and up the song, and it's kind of cool. It's different, I'm actually thinking about doing some recordings of some songs I've written that might fit that style a little bit better, and just put out a few songs and that kind of old school style recording, and just to see what happens, just to have fun, because I do appreciate it. Of course, I love playing full bands with drums and kind of rocking it up a little bit like anybody else, but it is kind of neat to try that old traditional style a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think the drums are a very underrated instrument in country music. They're so good, and I have an awesome drummer in my band, and I really, really appreciate him. I think that, though, if we had to play the genre without it, I think it would open up a lot more percussive playing options for acoustic guitar. But I don't want to play it without drums.
Yeah.
Full band.
Well,
There's
and
like
that's one of the
full band.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And actually, that's one of the things that I always found interesting about country music is that if, for example, there isn't that kind of like really, really percussive like area to it, they make up for it in like crazy vocals and crazy harmonies. Like, I mean, the first song I think of is Wagon Wheel, but like obviously there are other ones that are better with harmonies and stuff like that. But I think that's one of the things that I personally appreciate about country, because I kind of went through like a country phase. I don't want to say it was a phase, but where there was like a moment in time where I listened to a lot of country. And one thing that I really appreciate about the genre that I still take away today is the harmonies and the vocals and like just how tightly knit everything is. I don't know if that's what you guys include in your music at all, but yeah.
No doubt.
I think there's something to be said though about like a really good, when an artist has this, like they release a song that's like super built up, but then they do this acoustic version that's just like so like well done. I think there's something to be said about that. So I think there is room for places. Yeah, there's room for songs that don't need that big the big kind of country ensemble with the huge drums. Like there's room for just acoustic beautifulness. So yeah, so I guess our next question is, what are some things that you love about country music, and what are some things that you don't love about country music? Sorry, specifically the country music scene is what I want to know. Not just country, but the country music scene. What are the things you love and some things that you don't love?
I find in Canadian country music, at least, everyone is so kind and welcoming, and everyone's willing to help you out when you need it. And there's no reason to kind of be afraid to reach out to people. And when I came into the scene, everyone was just so welcoming, and I love that so much. There's a great community of musicians and artists and songwriters, and everyone here is just so kind. I don't know if there's anything I don't really particularly like about it.
No, that's a good thing then. How about you, Shelby? What do you think?
Yeah, well, growing up just south of Nashville and kind of being exposed to Nashville for as long as I have, I've seen it change quite a bit from when I was a kid. And it's a really cool town, and anybody that's willing to move there and put in the work can make something of themselves. I guess it's like anything else. It's political, and who you know definitely helps, and how much money you have helps. And there's a lot of things that aren't ideal about it, but at the same time, if you go there and you work hard and try to make something of yourself, I've seen people that deserve it do big things. So
absolutely.
What I like about the community is just that there's all kinds of different folks that are in town, and a lot of them are like some of the most talented people in the world because they all came to Nashville to make it in country music. So there's just a lot of talent there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, that would have been one of the things I would think would be really difficult about the country music. We were talking about this the other day, actually, of how like musicians, when they want to, quote unquote, make it in country music, they go to some place like Nashville or Denton or any place like that, or even in Alberta, like you would, or LA. But I imagine that would be one of the hard things to do with country music, is go to somewhere where it's so heavily saturated. And Jessica, I don't know if there's are there a ton of country artists from like where you are? Like, are you deeply saturated in it, kind of like Shelby is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of country artists that are in Ontario. A lot of country artists I met through going to Humber, and they're all doing awesome things. And this year was going to be a big year for a lot of my friends. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we have to kind of postpone everything.
Yeah, that's super not fun. But I mean, like, again, with having so many artists that are kind of around you and kind of lifting each other up and supporting each other. Shelby, do you find that for you specifically, do you find that you have a hard time standing out in the scene, or do you find that you kind of found your own little niche in that area?
Yeah, I think I've come to realize in Nashville that you can pretty much walk in any restaurant and there's probably like a waiter or bartender in there that's that might be more talented than you, or has had a record deal, or who knows what. So I just think of it as like I just be myself, and I've really started trying to write songs that I connect with, that I enjoy. And I've come to find that the influences that I have and my voice and just the way I was raised, it just makes me a little different than everybody else. And not better or worse, but just a little different. So I just try to keep on doing that. And if I do it long enough, I think I find a few people that enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that authenticity in music.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think we have time for one more question here, but if you guys could give your younger self as country musicians and any advice, what would you give yourself? Just really about anything, about the country music scene, about country, about who you are. What advice would you give yourself? How about we start off with Shelby, because we don't want to put Jessica on the spot all the time.
Sure. Well, I will say to my younger self, I would have started learning to play guitar earlier if I could make myself, and I would tell myself not to let anybody tell me to chase any trends or change my style, and just to be myself. Because in Nashville, sometimes there's a pressure to be so commercial and so mainstream, especially in the world of publishing and trying to get record deals and stuff. It's like you're just better off being yourself and just being the best at that you can be.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jessica?
Yeah, I actually agree with a lot of what Shelby said. I'd also tell myself to start learning guitar younger. But I also would want to tell myself to kind of just trust the process, not worry too much about what other people are doing and what they think about what I'm doing. Everything happens for a reason. That's what I like to live by. But yeah, I'd say I try to tell myself just to not compare myself to everyone else in the scene, and everyone has their own unique kind of thing to offer, and all ships rise with the tide. So there's a lot of supportive people here. So at first, I would have told myself just trust the process.
Yeah,
that's great. No, it's hard, and I think you all said kind of a similar theme of like just be you, just be yourself, which is the hardest thing to do, but just try your best. But yeah, it's always a growing process. So that was actually our last question of the day. We're out of time. We are so lucky to have had you all on. If you are at home watching this roundtable with Vienna Whyte on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, or hit the bell button. We're going to be going live Monday to Friday from now on YouTube, so make sure you're up to date with us. If you want to hear this conversation on podcast format, check out Vienna Whyte Podcast on Spotify to hear what we talked about with country music today. So my name's Millie Rouge. I'm your host, and thank you to Marissa K for being our co-host today. Marissa, where can you find our band on the internet?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Vienna Whyte, Vienna like the city, White spelled with a Y, as in White Avenue here in Edmonton, Alberta. It's just at Vienna Whyte, website viennawhyte.com, anywhere like that.
Beautiful. And Jessica, where can our audience find you on social media? And can you let them know your band act name?
Yeah, so you can find me at Jessica Soul _ that's Jessica SOLE _ on Instagram, and it's pretty much same thing everywhere. Facebook's Jessica Soul Music, my website's Jessica Soul Music, and on my website I do have a little option for you to look at my band. We're called Jessica Soul and the Badlands, named after the Badlands in Caledon, Ontario, my hometown.
Perfect. And Shelby?
You can find me at Shelby like the Mustang, Lee like the Blue Jean, LOWE, Shelby Lee Lowe on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or ShelbyLeeLowe.com. I've got merchandise, and I've got songs on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music, so y'all check it out.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for working through the little glitches we had. I hope you guys all have a great day, and we'll hope to speak to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.